Yo, what's up? Back with another backtesting video. So yesterday, or was it 2 days ago, had to end that one a bit short due to an interruption. But anyways, we're back, man. So getting into the price action. We already know we broke our high time frame structure to bullish on Bitcoin. We have some nice POIs. We are on our second pull upwards, but locally we had some exhaustion, little distribution there at the highs, and we are accumulating within this first, main pull down. You can maybe call it your second, depending on the time frame, pull down after pushing up here and having that exhaustion. So ideally we want to get an accumulation in one of these lower POIs. Maybe sweeping this low could be nice, but that doesn't change the fact that this was a valid accumulation and we are long from this test entry. And yeah, so if price wants to go lower, that can just provide better entries if we can come into one of these lower POIs. But for now, we're just running that position. And where I left off last time was we were looking at Solana for a potential entry on an accumulation as well. So we're going to dive back into that. First things first, so just doing the high time frame TA just to update where we were at on all of these pairs, just so we are fully refreshed and we know about which opportunities are nearest. So yeah, ETH, we had that counter context, extended move to the downside, counter context, high time frame distribution. That is technically confirmed after that extreme liquidity sweep, but ideally we come up and we get a mitigation into this POI and, ideally some local confirmations inside of there, like a distribution inside of, just moving up, just a move up anywhere in this entire region with a distribution can be nice. Currently, we are in a range that, I did highlight here, but it looks like we are already getting some aggressive closes pushing up there, and you kind of have like a little bit of a bottoming formation right here. So, this can easily, I wouldn't look at this as an accumulation itself, although, without this tap, you could kind of call it that, where this could be an accumulation that pushes price up into the third tap right here. But, since this could technically be a Wyckoff tap, I don't like to view that accumulation, but I am aware of it. You also had some exhaustion coming into this low, where then we had that bottoming formation. So, definitely looking at this range with a grain of salt, it can easily get invalidated. Moving on to XRP, we actually are in a trade here on XRP that has, it's in deep profits, and I've already taken, a fair amount of profit, explained reasoning behind that on the last one. But on the higher time frame, we had that extended move to the downside, similar context to ETH with that semi-counter context distribution range right here with some third tap POIs unmitigated. We've had this extended move locally to the downside, so, accumulations tapping into this demand can be nice. So we left all this liquidity here. We kind of had a compression with a pop up, and then we had this distributive range right here that we shorted, and we got a nice refined entry on this TCT in TCT here, where we de-risked the technical target here, and then locally, since you could kind of look at this as a 1, a 2, and a 3, and simultaneously with price coming into this, it was just a extreme liquidity sweep, kind of just like coming down to that range low. Simultaneously with that, Bitcoin was confirming and coming into the POI for the test entry that we took. So I de-risked some of this position here because this could be just where we've even full TP. If you are looking at this range as a 1, 2, and a 3 with TCT and TCT and then third tap, that can easily be, and this is your PS. This can easily be, where you have your full TP, because you would want to front run your TP from, not put at that necessarily at that main low. Of course, price can always get that full rotation down and even, coming way lower to that lower POI I was talking about from here. But, with the extended move that we are getting, the ranging price action we are getting inside of here, it is very likely that price wants to come up and sweep this high again for a much cleaner, better looking distribution from there. So taking some profits is nice, and then we just have, we leave it open and we just have that hedge running for the long on Bitcoin. So, either way, if we come up and invalidate this short is in good profits, because this was an 11 RR with a 50% TP, so a 12 RR basically with a 50% TP, and we're leaving that run. And then Bitcoin is like a 20 RR that we're also, just leaving run. So either way the market goes, we are in fairly comfortable positions here. So yeah, that's what we're looking at on XRP. Honestly, the ideal, since we just secured some profits, ideally we just get this range right here. Maybe this move up can be simultaneously with Bitcoin hitting and take profit, and then we just short XRP back down. Who knows? Maybe we can de-risk, be risk-free on Bitcoin by then as well. Bitcoin, if we zoom in locally here, you can see that we did mitigate a demand POI, although it wasn't the most refined demand zone here. But if things start to turn around, start to look bearish, we can just trail our stop loss basically to break even right here. But for now, I'm just leaving the stop loss placement as is due to that refined zone and just price, kind of being in this overall region with some liquidity. Maybe, you want to get, some sort of a distribution that comes down and taps into that, sweeping this liquidity and sweeping this as the extreme liquidity, maybe even these lows. So we're just going to leave it alone for now. It's a nice position. Not necessarily too eager to de-risk it because we are in, running a good RR position. Even just with the slight move that we've gotten away from that low, we are currently up 2.3 RR, so this can be a very easy position to de-risk as if price can get a bit of a move up. But we're going to be monitoring it because we do have that option to trail the stop loss, potentially, if things start to look worse. Okay. Moving on to Doge here. Doge, we were just in this range. It kind of was like a, we had some exhaustion to the downside within the range coming to demand where we then got a liquidity swoop to the high. Then we got this compression here with some exhaustion coming into that, what I call the first move fake move of that compression. But after that first move fake move, we ranged for a long period of time. So maybe this wants to go over into a higher time frame range. That could be nice. Or, how I have it marked out here, you can see we were looking for a accumulation into distribution play. We're coming up, sweeping that liquidity. You can see how much liquidity was built coming into that second tap. And then, we got to push up into the third tap POI. And, there was not really any entry here. I was kind of looking at this build up, maybe looking, for a local 1, 2, 3 that we could get into there. That could have been a nice trade. But price has not reached any of these extreme POIs and is currently sweeping the majority of this return to zone and seeing aggressive buybacks in combination with Bitcoin confirming its model. So, this can easily just turn into an accumulation here with a 1, a 2, and a, potential 3 that wants to send price higher after, accumulating here, having this first move, fake move, maybe just wants to get some internal price action before going higher. But maybe also we want to just come up, continue building some liquidity coming up, and then, creating some sort of a distribution coming into the supply zone, actually mitigating that refined level of that supply. That could be nice. So we're just going to trade the confirmations we get here. We are in range discount of a potential first move fake move, although we are getting a bit extended. It has not been, the aggressive first move fake move. If we can get an accumulation here, though, then we could see some aggressive follow through to the upside there. But, within this accumulation, there wasn't any great entry opportunities just due to the aggressive moves into the taps, not providing either market structure or quality entry opportunities. Moving on to Solana here. Yeah, we actually had the potential entry on Solana, so good. We're ending with Solana here. Going to remove this to clean things up a bit. And we can throw this in a folder for now. Clean up the folders we had. Take this text. So, looking at Solana here, we had this aggressive move down. We front ran the low, and then we came into some supply with some exhaustion, and then we got a break of structure bearish with a range creation. So, within this range creation, we had a compression here, providing a really good trading opportunity where we had this compression, and then we had the distribution, 1, 2, 3. So that provided a really good trading opportunity, but as this distribution completed, it left a great return to zone and then deviated that low, and we're seeing some accumulative price action coming into that low, and simultaneously with that return to zone getting built up, we built up a higher time frame compression. So kind of, when I'm viewing this is that we had this lower time frame compression where we distributed coming out of that, and then that didn't have, the strength to push price aggressively to this low, and now we compressed again, and we are getting an accumulation, which this could be the first fake move out of the larger compression that we created. So that's how I'm viewing that. I like the context. We swept some good liquidity there, tapping into the POI for the completion, the technical target of this distribution, sweeping a lot of liquidity there, popping out of this compression, forming a very clean accumulative range right here with some sort of a accumulation as the range starting point, and then that went over into a distribution where we honestly completely missed the entry opportunity there. Same with this one. Solana honestly has just not it's just really like, since I've started recording these, I've been better at not missing these opportunities, although both of these happened while I was recording, so maybe that's not the maybe not, but going through so many pairs at once, it is possible to definitely miss trades, as you're clicking through candles on Bitcoin, something could confirm on Solana, maybe an idea that you didn't have mapped out yet. That's why it's good to just go over the high time frame TA, kind of get a good overview of the charts, maybe even look at it with the drawings off to kind of just see what the overall price action is looking like. To remind yourself that even though we had this, like for example here, we had this aggressive move up, and then I was watching this distribution range here, didn't get a quality third tap right there, didn't front ran the POI, but I think I shorted another pair at that time. But anyways, with this aggressive move up, I was thinking of it as a first move fake move of this compression, but I wasn't looking at the third tap POI from a distribution here perspective. I was more just looking for local models on that move down, and completely missed when price came up, just because the return to zone, when we had this aggressive move up, the return to zone wasn't super crazy, so I wasn't at first thought thinking of an accumulation within this range. But you live and you learn, so I definitely journaled that. We came back into the extreme of that, created some liquidity and just a structured move into the third tap POI there, and got the distribution confirmations. And then similar situation here, I wasn't immediately thinking of distribution to accumulation when viewing this, just because it's less typical to get a distribution into an accumulation, but I was looking for a market maker continuation model. So up here, when we were coming in, sweeping this liquidity, tapping into a really nice supply POI, I was looking for a distribution. I was like, we never swept the high, but I would completely miss the idea of the higher time frame distribution, accumulation into distribution right there, that confirmed on this tap. So I did realize it while we were still in the model, and then I tried to trade this local distribution here for the higher time frame target, and then I got wicked out. Boom, wicked out of that New York session after de-risking the trade before price then continued with the expectational order flow. So we've been nailing the expectation order flow. We saw that as a market maker continuation model at first, expecting a rotation back down, being in the confirmed higher time frame distribution, and we identified the distribution, just didn't, and we were looking for local models, like here I was looking for a model, I just wasn't seeing it as a third tap. So anyways, just a little journaling that I'm mentioning, some stuff that I was journaling about these trades that is good to mention, because little things like that can definitely the profits definitely add up if you can view those in the live moment and identify them. So anyways, now moving on to the current trading opportunity on Solana. Gonna run through my checklist on this. Things are looking pretty solid. We do have a supply POI there that got triggered, honestly, right on the weekly open. So that was Sunday, and now we're on Monday. So this could actually create a really nice weekly pivot. The week opened right here. Week opened here, pushed down into the third tap POI. So that could be, your manipulated move down. That was a weekend push down, or a weekly open push down. Boom, right on that Sunday, weekly open. And this could easily be your weekly low. So if you're trading the weekly low, that can be a nice pivot. And if there's no reason to come below this low, then yeah, that's nice for a stop loss placement if you're trading the weekly low, because we can expect price to then trend up for the rest of the week, especially in line with Bitcoin having a confirmed accumulation. So price came down and swept liquidity here. Didn't sweep this low, but this low did mitigate a clear 3-minute order block there. Gonna view that on the lower time frame real quick. Just kind of looks like maybe some super low time frame structure demand. Let's see if we can validate that. Yeah, it looks like the final structure demand there that got mitigated, and then this low actually did sweep liquidity, but we came back for it anyways. Front running this low, but you know, as you can see, there's reasons that we might not want to come for that low, having the demand there, and the fact that we're deviating that tap one and getting that aggressive break. You know, so it could always serve as a fake break for a range creation where we do come down and sweep this low right here and create an accumulation. But at that point, we just have to re-enter. Knowing that that is the room for error of the trade. Zooming out here, this looks like a doji candle. The close and the open are equal, so seeing what time frame we can validate this structure on. The 5 minute here. So this demand could be, we could label this fake supply due to the weekend manipulation and that move down. Also, there was a lot of liquidity. You were kind of compressing here. There was a lot of liquidity building below all of these lows. Well, you were, yeah, super compressive right there. And then right on that weekly open, just popping down, sweeping all that weekend liquidity. So yeah, this could be fake supply. I wouldn't rule it out. We have the position here. And then looking at the volume profile of this range. We are outside of the volume profile, so we do have some volume area low backed supply inside of here. Nothing too significant. The one thing I did notice that I still had on the chart from previously was if we look at the volume profile of this entire range, we are at a very nice region to bounce because we're coming into this super high volume node and we are deviating that volume area low there. So that's looking nice. Let me some reason what volume profiles switch back to the default. Had to attend to a couple things. Anyways, so viewing our checklist for this trade, we can just run through all of the factors of this and just kind of see if it meets all the criteria, and if it does, you know, then that's just a trade we have to take. So the context semi-pro, because we had that first move, fake move expectation, also with a Jasha coming into the low, sweeping the technical target of that distribution, so there's no longer a bearish order flow objective in play. Return to zone is very high quality. Very high quality. Is this the room for error of this potential trap? A potential fake supply created on weekly open. Oh, wait, the weekly open was, oh, this is Saturday. Oh, okay. I made a mistake identifying that. This was the weekly open down here. So either way, the weekly open could easily be getting put in. The weekly open would still be getting put in on that Sunday, which can definitely happen. But we can't view this from in the same way from that perspective of a fake zone, other than the fact that we do have this liquidity below. That push down was right on that London session, and then every session kind of just pushed down. So you kind of just had the entire day, starting in this London session, the entire day leading up to the weekly open pushing down, and then the weekly open potentially putting in the low. When was this high put in? This was last week, so you kind of had the entire week pushing down, and then right on that weekly open is when you're confirming, potentially a pivot to the downside, and then the next week you'll have the entire week pushing up, maybe. So that's interesting. We're gonna see. We're definitely gonna see. I really like this price behavior here on the confirmation occurring exactly on Asia, where you get the structure, push up, and then confirmation all within 1 hour of that Asia open. Yeah, I'm really liking that overall price behavior. Asia with weekly open pivot as tap 2. So that can be nice. The confluence we have is technically pro BTC and confirmed accumulation. The breaker structure is very aggressive. Supply demand creation is a yes, that's a clear one. Break and volume is a no, so got to be careful of volume area low, back to supply. Third tap POI was that extreme liquidity. Some room for error in the third tap POI. Third tap POI had some potential room for error, but is still solid. Tap displacement is looking good there. It's a bit more narrow, but you have that return to zone that makes up for it, and it's still decent. Not too bad. Kind of builds that overall return to zone straight into it. Duration of this was 11 days, 8 hours. 11 days, 8 hours. And then we can inverse this guy and just see how we're overall looking. I mean, yeah, the model itself looks super clean inversed. That exhaustion coming into the model, that's nice. Yeah, that's super nice. Zooming out and just kind of looking at the overall range. You have that compression that you're just coming down, sweeping the low of it. Yeah, come on. That's a no-brainer right here. I would say 2% risk, but we're already 1% long on Bitcoin. So it might not be necessary. And Bitcoin is like a 20 plus RR play. So we're just going to take this regular. But yeah, looking good there on Solana. So I'm just going to let it play. Double checking here. So we do that POI is actually mitigated. I'm not sure if this is like a overlapping or what it's mitigated by. Yeah, maybe just have a situation where you just pull it below the mitigation is what it's looking like there. Super clear aggressive breaker structure though that I like. Okay. Yeah, that's gonna be it. I'm gonna scroll over to Bitcoin here and just see how this progresses. Okay, pushing up. So, the further you get from this low, the less I want to see price come all the way back there. And the nicer it looks for a trailing location. Yeah, that H is just pushing up for the entire session. Sol is approaching the room for error POI, getting some sort of a rejection in this zone that was backed by the volume area low. Which, could be expected. This is the zone that we really want to just see get squeezed straight through. Seeing what is going on. That's all that progressed on ETH. Feels like nothing. Okay. XRP trade is still alive. Getting super extended here. Doge chilling locally. Gonna monitor this range here on Solana. Ooh, taken out there on Solana. Yeah, not looking the best there. Just reversed on that next Asia session. Some sort of an accumulation in this demand. I think I'm just gonna leave the stop loss placement here. Damn, so that's something definitely interesting to note, is that we did reject at that volume area low backed supply. Definitely gonna be watching for a Model 1 confirmation here, but we did create a massive supply zone coming down. Didn't even give us the opportunity to like see a distribution here. We just built more highs, which could be reason for a Model 1. We also have to keep in mind that we did have this liquidity POI right here. So maybe we want to get like a local model there, sweeping the true extreme. Just gonna tuck all these into here just to clean it up. Yeah, pretty large supply creation pushing down into there. You kind of have your entire Asia session with that push down, so that could be manipulated push down. We also have Bitcoin coming down with some sort of a cumulative price behavior there. Sweeping all liquidity. Just gonna view it like this. Okay. ETH putting in that deviation. Not seeing anything super clean from a third tap POI. Yeah, I'm just gonna see how that progresses. Gonna go on the lower time frame and see how these models behave. Like this right here is fairly clean. PS. This could be an entry just to give it a try. POI is mitigated though. I think we come below that mitigation though. You do. It's kind of like, yeah, you had this as your overall demand zone. That's just simply a, I think it's is it unmitigated on these higher time frames? Oh no, it's just always mitigated. It's always sketchier trading these models with the aggressive expansions down. Super low time frame. It's not really what I prefer to trade. Let's see. 217. Could be worth that 0.5 risk position, just due to its potential. Manipulated, push down. But like, what's a really reason to come below this low? Like, yeah, for the last drop of liquidity. You know, it is a valid local model. Could be worth like throwing just a 0.5 on. Well, you know, if it does run, then it's like a 30. And if not, you just lose a 0.5 on the potential idea, and it's pretty easy to de-risk. You can label this move down as manipulation. Everything still applies for the overall model. We knew we had that room for error of that liquidity there. Fake break, you know, trapping people to long too early before getting this move down that, you know, just stops them out and then looks too aggressive for people to want to enter on. I can see it being worth a try just with the ability to de-risk at the technical target, just as you do have that local bottoming formation. Kind of want to see, I don't want to spoil the candles, but I do want to see what the bottom looks like. Could be creating something on the 3 hour or the 4. Super aggressive move into it though. I'd give it a try with the 0.5 risk. Yeah, I'll give it a try with the 0.5 risk. Could definitely see, you know, just some local relief. It is a bit riskier due to the low time frame for sure. that's why we're looking at it for the TCT and TCT as the only, potential entry. So yeah, we're gonna see here. Damn. Looks like it wants to do a high time frame range. Took with the 0.5. Wasn't really much reason to come down and sweep it necessarily, other than just to have some more exhaustion coming into the range. Much better return to zone though, and a bit higher time frame, and it could be that daily range if we can get a confirmation on New York, which is just overall, just a better play to have the daily range there. So yeah, we're gonna see here. Watch the extreme here. Pushing lower there for the Model 1, it looks like. Damn. Please say that's XRP hitting the take profit now. Not yet. Not yet. That's Bitcoin getting stopped. Okay. So Bitcoin got stopped here. Had the opportunity to trail the stop loss, didn't take it due to, the potential of coming back down. But, seeing this bearish close could be reason just to trail the stop loss here. Not really looking that great anymore, but coming up into this high, it just kind of like front ran the liquidity. Like there wasn't really any clear sign necessarily to de-risk up here and just take a partial randomly right there. Throw all this in the trade. Could, potentially look at this. But again, I'd prefer, I'm not trying to take a million L's as price, just exhaust down into here for this being the actual model that we did originally want to see, knowing that this model is semi-counter. Yeah, semi-counter there. Like this. But we can always watch this range. But with the way you're coming down locally here, building some nice highs, like this could be a really nice overall range right here. ETH just pushing lower, not getting any kind of a third tap there. XRP coming lower, also approaching the next TP there. And if this comes to TP, that's definitely making up for much more than what we lost on 1.5 on Solana and 1 on Okay, and then there you go. Seeing this idea here work on Doge, just not giving us any proper entry up here. Having such an easy opportunity just to come and sweep it right here. Building up all these buy side liquidity lows and then just instead just, messing around before going for it. So that's unfortunate. Looks like this overall idea is getting invalidated. So I'm gonna take the entire thing. Throw it into here. Like this. This being a very strong supply level, if it if we can spend more time below it, that's going to be a very strong supply level. But again, we could be having that first move, fake move out of the compression. It just might want to have that continuation lower. I can mark out the demand POI here. Okay. There we go. So I'm thinking we're just gonna watch Bitcoin here and see how Bitcoin wants to develop. Getting that aggressive move, so need some time to develop anything new. Yeah, not really interested in this. Coming super close to that low. Just wanting to see that low get taken out. ETH completing that. ETH, we could watch for this range to form. Kind of just depends which side gets taken first. But we're definitely ranging here. But we did just sweep liquidity on the top side and the low side, so something new needs to develop. Could look for a distribution coming into some supply up here. Doge completing that. That's nice to see. Okay. So that's done. Maybe, yeah, we'll just put the distribution on the chart. This is similar now to the Solana range we were watching. Although the price expanded much lower than that Solana range, just kind of showing the overall bearishness of the environment on Solana. Even though we did have the liquidity above, it just wanted to expand lower. This is also kind of just be an example of when you have that clear compression, you come up and you deviate it. A lot of times you don't come back for a third tap, but when you do, it's a pretty good play. So yeah, this can be a potential play in the near future on Doge. Solana's just pushing lower, so we can look for some redistributions if we get retracements up into here. Or even locally here. That could be nice, and if not, you know, watching this low for accumulations. I'm gonna use the restroom real quick. We're back. Now we're kind of like putting in these equal lows on Bitcoin. So this move up, we could look for some local distributions. Depending on how we come into it, we could look at this as a Model 1. We're within that time allotment. We're kind of falling out of it though, for sure. But like when you have that compression as your range start, it could still be tap 1. And, you know, just with Solana, we can see that this ended up being the weekly high on Monday, May 22nd. 23. Man, I wonder what I was doing that day. I know exactly what I was doing that day, actually. Okay. Doesn't look like we have established a good PY here on Doge. And, you know, we still got to come up a bit higher because we have these supply zones up here. That would be nice to, you know, fill some of this inefficiency and build out that return to zone a bit better. So maybe we get a model 1. Let's watch some of these pairs locally here, see what price wants to do. You know, seeing this exhaustion coming out of this low. Man. We could want to sweep all this liquidity here and distribute on Doge. Yeah, it's looking like this is your best POI prior to inefficiency. You are already forming something. Day and duration. It's just a bit low. It's that semi-counter context. Depending on where Bitcoin's located, though, we could trade it. Bitcoin's pushing up. Okay. XRP coming all the way up into the extreme supply of our model with the distribution range. Unfortunate that. Wait, hold on. Hold on, man. Don't tell me XRP is the only one with a model that completed. Don't you tell me this. That is crazy. Damn. The context is not ideal in this one. That's just crazy to see. I don't know if I would have traded it, especially being... I guess it is a hedge. Wow. This can be used as your extreme liquidity, but it might have also... Wow, man. Did we come for this? Looks like it. Wow, yeah, that's nice. Use either of those. Wow, man. XRP, man, of course. What are the chances? The pair we are short on with the worst context for it. Or was it? Let's look. This looks so ugly. Hold on, let me close all this. I just gotta remove all this. It looks horrible. Especially with how extended the model is getting. It's like, this needs to be hidden. I guess all of this should just go inside of... I'll just put it in there. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. So, I mean, yeah, by now, stop loss can definitely be trailed to here. If we come up there, we're definitely taking that high. So that's like a third of a trail. We have a lot of trades to journal after this one. This is quite a clean entry though, I can't lie. New York manipulation pushed down. New York manipulation pushed down. I'm gonna leave it. Clean overall, return to zone. Hedge to our short. And it's one of those typical scenarios where you have that short with the super steep return to zone, and then you kind of just come around the EQ and then accumulate there. So that could have been a nice place to take profit. But at the same time, this could have been a valid trade. With what purpose, though? If we come up here, that could be a nice model. I'd say this was valid, man. Where was Bitcoin in this exact moment? This was the 25th at 10. Bitcoin was down here. So not really having the clearest direction at that moment. We are currently creating a little supply to demand flip. Could always be. I'm not gonna rule it out. Although it was not the best to enter on. But it could always be. This is a valid trade for sure, and also a valid final TP. That should have been the closure of my position right there. Classic example of a model with a steep return to zone going over into an accumulation that is larger than the entire model. You can just see how, like, as this developed, as price spent more and more time, this got more and more narrowed, and this got more and more stretched out. You can just see this got uglier and uglier. Like, if I go on like the 10-minute and you kind of like disregard that, like just looking at this model alone, it doesn't look horrible. You know what I mean? If this came up right here and just got a flush down, like, that's not a bad model. That looks fine. You know what I mean? but this is what happened instead. So definitely that classic example. We've seen that before. I've seen it before even on XRP. Just gonna go in here, and we're just gonna label this as a missed trade. This was for sure valid, especially since we were in the short. Missed trade. Bitcoin wasn't in the ideal location, but and neither was XRP, but we did have the short running. So, and this was a high probability model. Definitely want to journal this one, just because it definitely seen it a lot of times, and you know, getting that pattern recognition down is nice. So yeah, down like XRP was the only one. We're in a short on XRP, and of course it's the only one with a valid accumulation here. I'm literally just gonna mark this out. And technically it wasn't the worst context, because you did technically, you know, if we're looking at this model, you came to the technical target. Just like as it's getting stretched out, like this could have just been a final TP right there. I wasn't even looking at XRP from that perspective, but yeah, I should have. I mean, we're still technically in the trade, but it hasn't been stopped yet, but it did hit that technical target of this model. Yeah, look how steep the return zone is. So it wasn't the worst context in the world for XRP itself, and you can see like kind of we're in that bullish trend. So getting a couple market structure pulls down prior to an accumulation, fake break, you know, go over into that accumulation can be decent. But now we're just going to see what happens next. We can definitely watch this distribution for a trade. Yeah, it kind of also has to do with like not getting greedy and targeting these lows. When you can just see over time, it clearly progresses into this being the range. When you're getting all this liquidity buildup, also sweeping that range low. That's another thing, is my longs were no longer running. Thing is, I really just wasn't looking at XRP that closely from a management perspective, and of course, you know, in a live trading environment, I wouldn't be like, you know, trying to monitor the live price action, you know, just developing super fast on 10 different pairs, you know, whatever, 5 different pairs. So that is a difference there. Not really liking this, you know, super aggressive push up right there. Could be that BULPS kind of region right there. That just wants to expand higher. Yeah, we can mark out this for sure. That's the supply getting mitigated there. Nice exhaustion locally on ETH, so we could get a local model here on ETH. I am, approaching hour 1 of backtesting, and I do have some other duties to attend to, although I'm very curious to see how all this progresses. I have a lot to journal anyway, so I'm thinking it's a good place for me to call it, and then, I'll do the journaling tonight, come in refreshed, and check out locally what's going on all of these pairs. Bitcoin squeezing higher, XRP distributing in supply. Solana could be getting this range right here. Sui is live. Was Pepe too? Oh shit. Pepe just got launched as well. No whiff, no Farcoin though. We'll probably have a lot of these pairs. H-bar got this potential accumulation. Oh shit. Oh shit. Maybe we'll just long H-bar open randomly. Damn, swooping that liquidity POI. This is a super random side note right here. That looks nice. Is it gonna pull back though? We are locally in some supply. But on a real note, I do have to leave. Yeah, this is super clean though. Thing is, I'm definitely not gonna remember to check it tomorrow. Anyways, man. I think we got everything updated though before we step out. Some nice local, potential opportunities progressing across these pairs. But yeah, that's it. Appreciate you guys for watching.